then all these things, and I join some movements in the church, then I'm already a Christian. So, is there still a space for you to grow? In our readings today, it tells us something more, that we should not be contented with life. There is something more, and that is what the verse reading today from the book of Wisdom, it tells us that we have to know the plan of God. And do we really know what is the plan of God in our life? And so the book of Wisdom, as Solomon would say, we need to pray. We need to have that wisdom of God to make us understand what is His plan. And of course, we can understand the demand of Jesus when He says that you have to renounce everything for the sake of Christ. Can we really understand that without the power of God working in us? So we need that wisdom of God as being articulated from the first reading. And so we need to make a relationship with God. And what will be then the consequence when we make a relationship with God? There is an experience of freedom. There is experience of being free, that we can relate with everybody. We don't see each one now as a slave, but we see each one now as a brother, as a letter of Paul to Philemon, when this Onesimus was a slave, maybe because he had committed some crime, now he was in prison. Because of that, there was an encounter of Paul. There was a conversion of Onesimus, now not anymore a slave but free, because he started to follow God. He started to follow Jesus. And so we would like to be free. Free from what? As the gospel tells us today, that we have to renounce everything. If you want to follow me without hating his father and mother, you cannot be my disciples. Maybe for some of us would translate that literally, so wala day problema, Father, kay sige man mag-away sa kong papa na ako nga palahubog, so kaaway na ako kanunay, no? So akong kaaway, ako mainahan, kay masakiton man, so maybe that is how we translate that, but that is not the way. The way is, if you love Jesus, then He must be the first, the second, everything. We have to love Him more than our parents, our loved ones. Jesus must be the priority of our life. And when we say He's the priority of my life, then I am willing to sacrifice for the sake of Christ. And so to follow Christ would mean that we have to carry our cross. And sometimes to carry the cross will be translated in the sickness that we have. Maybe ang uban sa tuwa, terminal na siguro ang sakit nato. Terminal cancer man siguro. Whatever sickness that we have na siguro, bilang na lang ating araw. So maybe we look at that kind as a cross. Or maybe we don't have that problem. Maybe our problem now of being old, how can I still become meaningful? How can I still be useful in the midst of these families of mine who are already complaining? Or maybe how can I still become useful in the midst of the world that seemingly the world is only looking for money. Now I am teaching children to become closer to God by the prayer of the rosary, teaching them how to pray the rosary, teaching them how to do some prayers. Is my life still relevant now in the way that Christ wants me to be? What is really the will of God for us? What is really His plan for us? Jesus Christ invites us to be with Him, not only 1%, but 100%. We have to love Him with all our heart, mind, body, soul, and spirit. That He must be the first, that we have to love Him more than our parents, than our loved ones, than ourselves. And we have to carry our cross. What is being said here, that to follow Christ would mean that we would be like an architect who really tried to calculate everything, trying to prepare all the resources so that to have that kind of tower. And so if we're going to build a house, of course, maybe you have really to do a lot of analysis, a lot of maybe, siguro not only analysis, but really concrete things. Trying to know what is really the cost already of the materials and how long you're going to do that. So we need really to calculate everything. That is how we're going to do when we're going to follow Christ. There is the demand that am I ready to follow Him? Am I ready to detach from my family? Am I ready to surrender everything for Him? And the king would like to, rather the other parable that was said here, the king would see whether his troop can really fight against from the 10,000 to 20,000. So in other words, it would really mean a lot. It would really have a lot of studies, whether it is possible or not possible. Kung hindi kaya, surrender na lang. So in other words, if we cannot really follow Christ, then let us say no to Christ. We know the demand of being a disciple today is not only to be, I am a Christian because I'm baptized. I am a Christian because I go to the church during Sunday. I am a Christian because I have some movements in the church. There is something more, and that something more is to see what is happening in our society today. Some days ago, when I am meeting some of the women, yung mga babae na may mga problems sa relationship, and to know their stories in life, paano sila na-involve. Ibang sinasabi natin yung mga babae na mga Magdalena siguro, how they were involved in those experience, yung how can they really still survive, yung para sa kanila to make that relationship survival lang yun. So they have to do that because para pakain sa family. So it is not easy to hear that. Or maybe from time to time we see some children, yun doon yung alam natin, yung mga aso lang ang pupunta sa mga basura para kainin yung mga basura doon. Now we see children, not only the children, but we see also a father and mother. So ginagalaw yung mga basura, kinukuha yung ano pang makain. And we see a lot of families now, na anyway, okay naman siguro yung may mga relationship, from one relationship to another, and the children are suffering. There are many problems that we see in our families today, that we are a lot of ibang mga presentation ng media siguro, o presentation ba siguro ng mundo, na ganito ang buhay na lamang, simple na lamang. No? So if you're going to make that kind of yung makipag-relationship na hindi naman siguro tama, yung mga premarital sex, yung mga drugs, kung ano-ano pa yung mga pleasures sa mundo. So Jesus Christ is telling us that if you wanted to follow me, then you must have to look for these people. Guide them. Bring them closer to me. Can we do that for Jesus? Or maybe today we are already complaining, paano nang alagaan yung mga may sakit sa amin, nahihirapan na kami. And sometimes we complain to God, why is this problem na aking natanggap kayo sa buhay? Kasalanan ba ito? Parusa ba ito? We have a lot of questions. In other words, we don't want to accept the cross. We don't want to sacrifice. For some students na parang madali na lamang siguro na yung pag-aral na bilihin na lang yung mga diploma, hindi na mag-aral. O siguro paano pang ginagawa natin sa pag-aral natin, minsan niloloko natin yung mga magulang natin sa ating mga instead, yung mga projects natin, dinudoble natin, niloloko natin sila. So can we not see our parents are making us suffering? Can we also do our part by doing our best in our studies? There are many things that we see around, not when we say seemingly parang okay, but deep down in the hearts of each one, we see there are a lot of loneliness, a lot of fears, a lot of anger and hatred in the hearts of people. And Jesus Christ would like us to do something that we improve our community, that we improve our family, that we improve the outlook of life. Minsan lang nakakatakot lang, o minsan ba siguro hindi man nakakatakot, minsan nakakaawa na lamang na when that person already sa last moment na ng kanyang buhay, diyan na maghingi ng grasya sa Lord. Lord, bigyan mo ko ng panahon pa na maging magaling ako. Kasi pag magaling na po, Lord, I'm going to help the church. I'm going already to do for the poor. I'm going to reach out to these people. These are the situations that we realize that God is inviting us in every moment of our life. Of course, we don't have to blame each one. We have only to see that the grace of God is always there inviting us